All right. We're here. This game might not get played, but we're here anyway. And that's the important part is that we're here for you. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Battle Hymnal. My name is Nathan Lawrence, the co host and part time proprietor of the Chapel Bell Curve, your favorite UGA podcast about stats and all things dumb. I'm joined by my co host and producer, Josh Hancher of Dog underscore Stats. God, say hello, Josh.
Good evening, guys. Good dogs.
And I am joined by my co analyst and co host, Graham Coffey of Dog Out West on Twitter and of Dog Sports fame. Say hello, Graham.
Hello.
And we are here to break down and preview through film and through our prodigious intellects. I guess only we think that, but sure, we'll say it. The upcoming matchup between everyone's favorite UJ Bulldogs and the Crimson Tide of Alabama. So, I think we're going to start with a graph. Graham, do you want to just? I think Graham has some really good insight on what the game plan is going to be from UGA. It's going to kind of guide our analysis of film going forward. So, Graham, hit us with your chart, my dude.
Sure. So Josh has up a graph that's basically just Matt Corral's passing direction and where he did his damage against Alabama last Saturday night when the Rebels put up 48 points. If you see there, it is basically all right down the middle. 297 of his 331 passing yards came in the middle third of the field. So if Josh, you don't mind throwing up Stetson Bennett's passing direction chart, and this will be
Stetson's up.
Awesome. So this is Stetson's numbers for the entire season, and he's had some success on the edges, more so on the left side than the right side. But if you look through there at the passer ratings and the completion percentage, he's killing it in the middle of the field. And if you watch him, if you've watched him the last few weekends, it seems pretty obvious he's most comfortable throwing the ball in the middle of the field. So Kirby Smart is probably going to owe a nice thank you note to Lane Kiffin if things go well on Saturday night for basically showing him what the game plan should be when Georgia goes to Tuscaloosa. So, Josh, do you mind if we look at clip 114?
Yep. You got
awesome. So this is going to be a play from Saturday night, and you've got Malachi Moore there with the arrow under him. He's going to come on a corner blitz, and Jordan Battle, the Alabama free safety, is supposed to rotate onto Elijah Moore right there. All that Moore really has to do is get some inside leverage and get to all of that open space there that we have circled on your screen. And so as you see when this play is going to run here, basically he's out of your screen, but Battle gives him way too much cushion, and it's just a nice, easy pitch and catch, 10 or 12 yards. I've heard a lot of people this week talking about how, Stetson Bennett is not Matt Corral, and that is correct. He is definitely not, but he is very comfortable making throws just like that. Can we look at clip 129, Josh? So here you're going to see Moore in zone coverage. He's basically standing on the S in the Ole Miss logo. And Moore is a really talented football player, but he's still young. And so far, it doesn't seem like he's really learned how to disguise his coverages very well. So he's staring into the backfield, and Corral sees that. And once again, Battle is going to be responsible in man coverage for Elijah Moore. Once again, we've got a giant chunk right in the middle of the field. And it's basically a similar type of play design to the different side, except for this time Moore isn't going to blitz. He's really sitting in zone and waiting, and it's just a nice little RPO. Boom, right there. I don't expect Georgia to get such egregious busts as Alabama gave Ole Miss on Saturday night unless they kind of find a level of tempo that we haven't seen from them this point in the season. But I do expect them to be able to take advantage of matchups, and one of those matchups that I think we should be looking for is Moore and Battle. They usually line up on the same side of the field, and like I said, they're very talented young players, but they still haven't quite figured out how to work together and sort of cover for each other. So let's look at the Karis Jackson touchdown catch from this past Saturday against Tennessee. You're going to see Georgia doing kind of a similar thing here. So Kenny McIntosh is going to motion over to the right, and that's going to pull Henry To'oTo'o out of the middle of the play. It's also going to take the guy that's covering Karis Jackson, and he doesn't move towards the backfield, but he puts his eyes on McIntosh just long enough to let Jackson get a step. And again, the safety for Tennessee there on the left side of your screen, he's going to be focused on Pickens, like everyone should be in the red zone. And so it's pretty easy catch. And the beautiful thing is that Stetson Bennett, you're going to see on the snap here, he knows he's got Jackson, but he actually looks back off and waits so that Jackson can get downfield. And he turns that into a 25 or a 20-yard touchdown pass instead of maybe like a 12-yard gain. So really good work by Bennett, really good work by Jackson. But that's the kind of the conundrums that the Todd Monken offense will put you in with that motion. And the good news for Georgia is that we know that Alabama is susceptible to that kind of action. So what do you got for us on that topic, Nathan?
Yeah, I if we can pull up this, we're gonna look at a Keras Jackson slant here. This is on, or yeah, can you pull up the slant to Keras?
Give me a number.
That is play 12, or no, sorry, play 4 from UT. So, Keras has been lining up all over the place, but in this instance, he is in the slot. And I mean, this is just a real simple. I don't even think this is really in zone. He catches this guy on a slant, on a quick slant, and just gets in front of him. And you can see that, like, at the snap there, he gives Jackson inside coverage, but he's also looking into the backfield. So this is just a really good way to put a defender in conflict. This play is so quick, it looks like they're probably in man, but I think he thinks he has more safety help over the top than he does, regardless of whether they're in man and zone. And so, I mean, regardless of what the coverage is, this is just a really easy way to beat cushions, right? If you have quick slants and you have a sure-handed quarterback, and for whatever else you can say about Stetson Bennett, he is a guy who can deliver that ball. And the slant was something that was weirdly missing from UGA's offense last year, and I think this is a really good. I think attacking the middle of the field like this is going to really be helpful against Alabama. And what you'll see too in this play is that if you look at both of the inside linebackers off the line of scrimmage, one of them gets pulled over by Burton, but they just kind of get caught flat-footed by the route tree on the right side, and they're really totally out of the play. So if you can take an inside linebacker out of the play, either by faking the rush or having them think creep into the box, or you can just like run enough routes at them that they don't know what to do, you can get success. Can we look at? There's another concept that I think is fun and new to UJ's offense, which is play 12. We've seen from UT. We've seen UGA run this a couple of times. They ran it to Zeus, I think, against Auburn. So this is just an angle route out of the backfield to McIntosh. I love this because once again, that I think that is To'oTo'o who is he's in zone, obviously trying to catch McIntosh out of the back, and he just gets caught flat-footed, and McIntosh just runs right by him, right? And I think he is in basically zone, like first man out of the backfield or whatever. But that is like kind of a vintage Madden play. Like I think I've called that on NCAA 14 like 150 times. But it really does work if you want to attack the inside linebacker in the middle of the field. And the thing is, Dylan Moses is a very good linebacker, but most running backs are going to have the advantage, especially if you can also show them like the out of the backfield flat, and you can show the out of the backfield out route. Then you're gonna if you get a linebacker like that flat footed, you're gonna have a lot of success. The only other concept I want to talk about that I think is going to be important in terms of taking advantage of the middle of the field is the tight end skinny post. We've seen, so if you can give me play 16 against Tennessee. We've seen this out of Georgia several times. We did it in Arkansas, going to Washington. We saw it a couple of times in the Auburn game, but this is a great one to McKitty. And I love this play because it is a skinny post, but there's a lot of feel to the way they've taught it. It's very clear. So it's not, he's not going a full 45 degrees. He's not quite going 25 degrees. He's just sort of slipping into he slips into the space between the guy trailing him, whether he's trailing him because he just ran past him or because he's in trail technique, I don't know. And the safety. And like, that's not a super great throw. You'd like to maybe see a little more loft on it there, maybe, but I mean, it's well delivered over the linebacker's head. Yeah, Josh.
What I was going to say is I heard one of the criticisms is that that Bennett hadn't shown a lot of touch, but he drops this ball in the one spot that his guy can get it and nobody else can. So that's a nice touch pass. He may not be doing that with high percentage, but that was a good play. I mean,
that's a great play. And like anything that you would say about that pass is basically just like, yeah, you sure do wish that Bennett was like 3 inches taller so he could release it a little higher, but that's neither here nor there. Right. And this little like, skinny post, tight end seam, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it is the thing that I like about it is if you watch, and I don't have the video of this, but if you overlay the way UGA runs this play 3 or 4 times, the route is never exactly the same. It is very much a feel route. You're just trying to get inside. You're trying to get inside leverage on a quarterback and get in front of a safety, and that is really beautiful. I think that I think we're going to see all 3 of those. I think we're going to see skinny post all over the place. I think we're going to see quick slants, especially if they start crashing down on the run. If we get any success in the run game, I think we're going to see a lot of the quick slant game. And I think the angle route, I mean, it's probably a gadget play, but it's something that they have to watch out of the backfield. And if you're running, UGA has really liked to run this play where they run like a split zone action, and then they run the tight end sniffer and sort of like a flat out of that, and then they run the running back out behind him. And when you have just that kind of diversity in your running back play, in your running back route tree, and you've actually put it on film, which UGA has to this point in the year, I think something like the angle route is something that it's not going to be your bread and butter, but it would not shock me if UGA springs a big one on it coming up in Saturday. And I also think the skinny post from the tight end, like we will throw that ball. Like that seems to be something that like Monken like actually really believes in.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about the run game, Josh? In this
game?
Graham, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say, Josh, if you don't mind pulling up clip 17 from the Ole Miss Bama game, but while you do that, you had some statistics earlier this week on the frequency of which Ole Miss ran inside zone, and I believe it was inside power. Those 2 concepts against Alabama last week. Wasn't that a massive part of their play share?
They had a tremendous amount of success against Alabama. It was like 6.7 yards per carry on inside zone reads, and inside power. And I mean, and I think Lance McCurley, our buddy at Bulldog Illustrated, tweeted out, from Kirby's presser, he said, that Kirby said Ole Miss played great, but we don't do that. And my response on Twitter was, I think we do that. I think we do challenge and do inside zone runs. They had a lot of success on that. But I would caveat that with, we saw the same thing at Ole Miss versus LSU, and we couldn't replicate what Ole Miss did on offense for that game. But here's your Ole Miss Alabama play.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, this is basically just going to be an inside run concept here. But I think the thing that's interesting is watching that kind of sniffer fullback 84. He just seals that number 31 coming off the edge for Bama. He seals him out perfectly, and the inside of the line does a good job. But I mean, you're right, Josh. Like this is stuff that we've been seeing Georgia do all year long. And I mean, we called it in the offseason when we studied Monken, like that he's going to have these tight ends kind of behind the line there. Let's look at clip 30 from that same game, if you don't mind.
There you
go. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So we got a little fake on the end around action, but again, just Ole Miss gashes Alabama up the front, up the middle all night long. And I mean, we've got more plays of this, but truthfully, it'd be a little bit redundant for us to just show you like 12 inside zone plays, because a lot of them went just like that.
And I actually think this is split zone, which is a inside zone derivation, right?
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Josh?
I was gonna say this is one of the plays I highlighted. They had like 5 plays over 20 yards on these runs. I mean, they kept going to it because Alabama couldn't stop it. I mean, they had a bunch of runs that were under 10 yards, but they still had like 3 or 4 that went for 9 and 3 or 4 that went for 7. I mean, and then some huge runs on inside. So it was good for them all night.
Yeah, totally. Let's look at clip 9 from the Georgia Auburn game, and we'll kind of see some similar action here. Nathan, do you want to break this one down for us?
Yeah, I mean, so fairly certain that we did this. If you can just let it loop, I'm fairly sure that we talked about this one at when we did the Auburn film breakdown. But I mean, this is just a straight up traditional split zone, and what you can see is like Zeus does a really good job of reading this in the right order, which is backside, inside, front side of the play. And you can see he looks to the left, sees that that's open, and he just sort of cuts it back in to the backside, which is really the hole that the split zone is designed to go to. And I mean, this is not like a spectacular play or something, it's like a 7-yard gain or whatever. But what's really heartening about this is that this is just despite all the clutter at the line of scrimmage, and despite the fact that two of our guys sort of just get stonewalled at the line by the defense lineman, the spacing is there and the blocking is such that split zone especially is a play where if you can just be even on most of your battles and the tight end makes the block there should be something there, right? And I think we saw against Bama that it wasn't like Ole Miss was just mauling Bama up front. They just had the space that they needed. Yeah. What's up, Graham?
Well, I was just going to add in, I mean, again, we're seeing that tight end action that we're talking about in that play we're looking at right there with Fitzpatrick coming across and sealing that side. And, Georgia's offensive line has been maligned at times this year so far. And there's been games, the Auburn game, they played great last week. They were shaky at times, but the things that Ole Miss did to Alabama last week, you're not talking about like a super athlete that just took over a game and played transcendently. Like this is replicable for Georgia to do on Saturday night in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, I mean, John Rhys Plumlee lit up LSU last year. And I keep comparing them like they're the same team, but they were, LSU was the number one offense in the conference last year and Alabama this year. So that's why I keep thinking of them in the same. But we didn't have that aspect in our game last year, and we couldn't replicate those plays. And so we just ran our old standard offense, which LSU had no trouble slowing down or stopping in the SEC championship game. So you're right, Graham. I like that point that we can replicate this. And that was kind of the point of my tweet. Is like, I am sure, Kirby's not going to say, yeah, we're going to do the same thing, but yeah, we can do this. I really feel like we can do this. They may be able to stop us better this week, but we can do this.
Well, I think what it really comes down to, and I know we're gonna probably transition here to defense in just a second. And I think the key to this game offensively is what UGA has been doing so well defensively, which is just clean execution. And the first half of the Tennessee game, I gave Stetson Bennett probably too much crap, more than he deserved, because I think as soon as the offensive line starts blocking in that game, UGA, outside of the defensive play, outside of everything else from Stetson, whatever, UGA suddenly has a big advantage. When the offensive line was blocking cleanly, and UT was not clogging up running lanes with 4 guys, then UGA started to have success. And if we can do that from the beginning of the game, I do think we have a shot. I mean, I think you're not going to run. We were never going to run QB power with Jake Fromm, which is what John Rhys Plumlee cut LSU up on. Like that was never happening.
Right.
But we do run split zone and inside zone constantly. And I would say that we probably, how well you can argue about how well we're playing, but we have just as good a talent in the offensive line room and the running back room as Ole Miss. I mean, outside of maybe like Elijah Moore, who I think is more of a receiver at this point than a running back. You want to talk about some defense, Graham?
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's look at Ole Miss Bama clip 75. And I mean, the thing that I want to highlight while you're pulling that up, Josh, before you run this play, is just that like Alabama, they've gotten a lot of hype and press in the media. Not hype, because that would imply that it's not legitimate. Like they're incredibly good through the air. And I think that's where a lot of the conversation starts and ends when you talk about the Alabama offense. But, all of that is predicated upon the run game with Najee Harris. And if you're Georgia, like you'll live with the chance of Mac Jones hitting some shot plays in one-on-one coverage, especially with Stokes and Campbell back there. But like if you can shut down some of what Najee Harris does, you're going to have a good shot in this game. And I mean, right here, we're actually we're kind of looking at the same thing. We've got another split zone, inside zone kind of concept. And I mean, it's wide open for
big hole.
Yeah, it's wide open, and he just runs right through there. But if we look at clip 8 from the Georgia-Arkansas game,
I mean, let this one play with full speed too. So
Yeah. You want to say anything about this, Nathan?
Well, I mean, I just think the thing about this is like, this is, obviously a good play from Najee Harris, but it's not just like, this is not a schematical win for you, for a schematic win for Alabama. This is like, the left side of the alignment looks off here to me from Ole Miss, and like Alabama's left guard just like mauls his guy, or no, their center just totally blows up their zero technique, and then the hole's just there, right? And so it's not, and like, there's a reach block. It's not even a zero technique. He just reach blocks up to the linebacker, and then the hole's there, and that's an easy score. If you have any positivity about this game as a UGA fan, it's that like those kinds of like easy misses are not going to happen to UGA's defense.
Totally.
You want to get with this clip from Arkansas?
Yeah, Nathan, break it down for us.
Yeah, I mean, you can see sort of like what I mean here by this. So it's like, this is a similar play. We have pre-snap tight end motion here, right? And then we run just a sort of straight up outside zone to that side. And like one of the things that Monty Rice does well that I don't think he gets enough credit for is that he is just getting very, very good at diagnosing runs. And we're seeing, or diagnosing plays overall, but we're seeing this happen to him sort of in real time over these last 3 games. And the dude just can sniff out a run, and he is not Roquan Smith athletic, but like plays like this.
It's like a shot out of a cannon.
Yeah, play well, and the reason is it's not because he's the fastest player on the field, right? It's because he sees that shift. He's like, okay, they're probably going power to that side, or they're going zone to that side, and then he just runs it down. And the thing is, like, because of UGA's alignment, he knows at the snap, if everybody but the tackle on my side shift protects to the left of the play or to the play side, I'm just going to run through this gap and tackle this guy. And then that's what he does. Like, and so it's little things like that where it's like, diagnosis, correct alignment, getting people in the right place. Ole Miss was not doing any of that stuff. And look, I am not saying that Alabama is going to be held to 38 rushing yards or whatever when you take out sacks. I think that's, that's silly to think, right? But I am saying that like you are not getting cheap yards against this UGA defense. Period. Now, that doesn't mean that that Alabama is going to lose to UGA, but it does mean that like in the same way that Graham was saying, we don't expect to see UGA's receivers quite that wide open. I don't think that we should have any expectation that, Najee Harris is going to have 5 touchdowns.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think like this is the first time I can remember in the Saban kind of dynasty era of like us coming into a Georgia Alabama game and feeling like Georgia probably has the better linebacking core and certainly has the better defensive line, and it's kind of a role reversal of the way that we're going to try to beat Alabama on Saturday night is the way that they've beat us for years. And, Alabama's got the high flying quarterback with Mac Jones. And I mean, like, it kind of reminds us of coming in with the Aaron Murray year in 2012, or, even Fromm his freshman year. I mean, he was not as dynamic of a passer as Mac Jones, but I mean, like, Georgia relied a lot on his arm in that game. And it'll be very interesting to see kind of that role reversal. Let's talk a little bit about the passing game, if you guys don't mind.
Absolutely.
Let's look at drive 4 from the Georgia-Tennessee game this past weekend, if you don't mind, Josh. The first play there. It's like I think, we all feel like, well, here. So we got DJ Daniel in coverage. This is the touchdown to Josh Campbell. Straight up. Tennessee went for the jugular right after stopping us on that 4th and short. Wait, I think
I've got these labeled a little differently. Hang on.
No worries.
There it is. This is the DJ TD is what I got this called as.
No worries. Yeah, so I mean, this is it's a beautiful ball from Garantano, but like DJ Daniel kind of misplaced that. Not kind of, like he misplays that about as much as you could misplay that ball. I mean, he's not in the play. Yeah, he's not in the play. And then I worry about his spinal cord there for a second. But if we let Alabama's receivers do this, especially early in the game, like if we send Alabama the message of you can win 50-50 jump balls all night, it's going to be a problem for Georgia. So, I think the reason that next play that you were going to show, Josh, the one that you were showing a second ago with Lewis Cine. I want to talk about that because like that physical presence over the middle, boom. I mean, like that was a disgustingly nasty hit. But like if Georgia can kind of make the Alabama receivers hear footsteps a little bit and at least like respect our secondary.
Sorry, this is funny. It's just whoa. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Like I think that's going to be kind of a game within the game, though. Is like just it might be a situation like that where Alabama completes a 20-yard pass over the middle on us, but when they do that, like especially in the first quarter, there, like Georgia needs to send a message of like, hey, you can come in here if you want, but if you're going to do it, it's going to hurt, and you're going to wish you hadn't, and kind of try to push things to the boundary. You got anything on this, Nathan?
I mean, I have another play at some point that I do want Josh to pull up, but let's talk more about the pass coverage side of it. I think that one thing that we need to address is the rush, but let's cue these Stokes plays up. I think one thing that makes you feel good is that I don't know if there's a cornerback duo in the country playing better than Eric Stokes and Stevenson are right now. And this is just a little pass breakup, but I mean, it's just perfectly played. Yeah, I mean, he probably grabs his jersey on the way across, but like whatever, that happens on every play. But he gets there right as the ball arrives. It's just an excellent timing route on a play where, like, if you watch like the sort of split second before the ball lands, like, I mean, the guy has a step on Stokes. Like, he gave him inside leverage, and he just has the recovery speed and the leaping ability to get in front of the ball. And like, that doesn't necessarily help you on those 50-50 balls, like you were saying. But I mean, a lot of the damage that Alabama was doing was on yards after the catch, with like Waddle catching a slant or a dig or whatever. And so like I do think that preventing some of those yards after the catch plays just by preventing them from being completions is going to be something that UGA needs to happen with, if not regularity, then like enough, right? And I mean, this is also good. This is the interception from Stokes, and this does like let me cue up my next point, which is that like I think as important as as important as coverage is, and this is a well-read ball, the thing that makes this is basically like a pass rush interception, right? And right. I think Mac Jones is not. I think I heard Rusty Manziel on the 24/7 Dogs podcast, which is a pretty good podcast. I really like it. Was talking about how like Mac Jones has not had a dirty jersey this entire year. And I think Mac Jones is a very good quarterback. I think, like you said, incredibly dynamic. But I don't know that he is the type. He's not Joe Burrow, right? And if you saw what Joe Burrow did against UJ last year, that play against Joe Burrow, he would have just like squirted out of that tackle and then thrown like a 60-yard bomb to Jamar Chase. And I think the thing to remember is that Alabama has a Jamar Chase, but they do not have Joe Burrow. So I think a big part of the game is just like, what does Mac Jones do after he gets hit in this game? Because he's getting hit. There's pretty much not a world in which this UGA defense. Alabama has a good offensive line, but like you keep a shirt clean on a quarterback against this UGA front seven, and like you're probably wearing like a Niners logo or whatever on your helmet. Josh, Graham, did you have anything else?
Yeah, no, I mean, to your point, Jones has only been sacked 4 times in 3 games this year, which is obviously not many. And I think the thing that's going to be, we talked about it going into the Tennessee game last week. Like we said on the show, like Georgia's defensive line has the ability to take over a ball game, and that unit can take over a ball game quicker than any other unit on the team. And, Tennessee is, I know that we blew them up and made them look bad in the second half, but like they don't have slouches on the offensive line. You got a 5-star in Cade Mays, you got a 5-star in Trey Smith, you got a 5-star in Wanya Morris. They have a lot of talent on the O-line. And if Georgia was able to do that against Tennessee, then they should be able to wear Alabama's O-line down a bit. And it's like all these plays with Mac Jones that we've seen this year, I've not once seen him have to like move within the pocket and step up or slide laterally to hit those bombs. So yeah, I mean it's just echoing your point, but I think even if Georgia doesn't sack him and hit him, just putting pressure to move him around probably will have like a huge effect as well.
Well, yeah, and like one of the something that really struck me against when watching some of that Ole Miss tape was like it wasn't just that Mac Jones did get sacked. Like he didn't have to move his feet. He basically
Right.
just ran his drop backs, stood in the pocket as long as he needed to, and then threw the ball. And he is going to have to move his feet a little bit in this game, even if there are no sacks. Like UGA had, Jordan Davis is going to push the center into his chest at least once.
Yeah.
Graham, you got anything else on or Graham or Josh, you got anything else on defense you want to talk about?
I'm good.
No, I mean, like, my thing is I've been looking at the overall numbers, and it's like everyone's talking about number one defense, number one offense, and I look at this thing called total net EPA, which is add all your plays total for the game on offense and defense, and you just basically net them out, right? So you subtract positive numbers and you add negative numbers, and Alabama in that category is still better than Georgia. And that's very equal to something that Senator Blutarski does on Get the Picture blog, where he tracks net yards per play. And I've looked at that in the college football playoff and stuff. And you really want to get to a point where you're like 2.0 net yards per play is where the cream rises. And Georgia's not there on any of these metrics, because as good as their defense is, their offense is middle of the pack. I think it's better, and it's more. I don't know. It's a young offense, but Georgia's still got room to grow and needs to grow and needs to get better to compete in, the playoff hunt. And I think that Alabama probably has the total edge this week, especially considering it's at home. So I love our defense. It might be an all-time UGA defense, and it's fun to watch. And I like where our offense is going. I just don't know if this game were week 6 or 7, I would feel much better. But I'm a little anxious about what we can get done on offense to keep pace. And our defense certainly has carried us for a long time. But that's my thoughts. Just kind of overall big picture on it.
No, that's good. And I mean, I want to talk about the game here for a minute, but I think the one thing that like I would not that I disagree with what you're saying at all, but I think the thing to consider with those numbers is that like Georgia's arguably played, the 3 best defenses in the conference so far. And I mean, Alabama, Missouri, not a good defense. Who did they play last week?
A&M.
A&M, yeah. So A&M, I mean, A&M just gave up 38 to Florida, and then
yeah, I mean, it's definitely a small sample size. I mean,
right.
but also, I mean, those teams have played Georgia, which may not be the best offense either. So I mean, it cuts both ways.
No, totally.
Maybe Arkansas's defense looks better because they play Georgia's offense. I think that obviously, it's early, and all I'm saying, I'm just tracking those numbers, and Alabama's offense is really, really, really good, and Georgia's defense is really, really good. But I still feel like you've got to be twice as good on defense as opposed to, like, I'm just throwing out numbers that don't have any basis, but I'm just saying, I think you've got to, I just don't know if a really great defense can make up for offset the best offense in the country, which is what Alabama is probably.
Yeah. I mean, one thing real quick. I mean, one thing that was interesting was Bill C put up a stat earlier this week on Twitter. I think this is like the 21st or 22nd time that the number one defense and the number one offense have faced each other in the S&P Plus era. And historically, the team with the best defense has a 12-9 edge, which is almost a coin flip. But I do think that the reality is like, no, Georgia is not an offensive juggernaut at this point. But just like watching this tape and breaking things down, they can move the ball on this defense for Alabama, and they can do it without too much stress. Like there's just, unless Alabama's linebackers become an entirely different unit overnight, like Georgia will have some success in this game moving the ball.
Okay, so pop quiz segment, and we can talk about this game and Coven, like your hats, Josh, and we can do plugs in a second. But Barton and Bud on the
our
show,
hats.
your hats, right? Our hats, sorry. The Bud, goodness, what's his name? The guy at Knowles Cast, Barton Simmons and
Bud Elliott.
Bud Elliott have been doing this. They did this game at one point in their SEC preview, where instead of predicting who Georgia would beat, they would say, how many points does Georgia need to score to beat X? So that's really the question, right? Like, and I want to give them credit because that's a really smart idea. How many points does Georgia have to score to beat Alabama?
28-31, somewhere in that range.
I would say so. Yeah. I mean, I don't think you have to score 40 to beat this team. Now, can you score 28-30? I don't know. I mean, I think that's I've made a prediction on this game in the Chapel Bell Curve, the main issue or the main episode, but I have no feel for this game. I don't know about you guys. Like, I have a lot of micro feel about it, about like, hey, here's what should happen schematically, and here's like the matchups, but I just have no feel for how this game's going to turn out. Like,
there's another good podcast too that kind of talked about something similar. It's the college football nerds, or the whatever that podcast is, and they broke down this game in depth. And they're very much, they approach it from, you know, kind of like you and Justin do, from an analytical standpoint. And he's got something called break points and bust points on offense, and he broke them down yards per play. It's a lot of numbers, but he kind of felt like that Georgia's offense wasn't good enough, you know, to score enough points. And he just felt like that if Georgia needed to win, it had to be a 30-point game. And, you know, Alabama's averaging close to 8 over 8 yards per play, and Georgia's at 5.6. Now, our defense obviously eats into that a little bit, but we've got to hold our 100%, or, you know, close to our 100% in yards allowed. And we've got to score 150, or we got to have our plays got to be 150% more than what we've been doing. And Alabama doesn't have to do that on their offense. They can afford to give up some of their, you know, their averages on offense. But you know, it's the same thing, and it's a small sample. It's a coin flip. You know, can we win? Yeah, I saw a stat today that said we had the most talent. Well, I don't know how that worked. That we've got the most, according to 247, that we've got the most talent
ratio, but it's by like 1%. I think it's like 72 to 71%.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's from, you know, it hadn't been really calculated since JT Daniels came to town, and we got, you know, and possibly the 3-star Jamie Newman going off and adding a 5-star probably helped that. But then that's just arbitrary because, you know, it's there. We have the talent, and we just got to get it done. Now, will we? Yeah, I don't know.
Let's talk about.
Well, hold on. Okay.
No, okay, sorry. Go ahead, Graham.
No, I mean, I do want to hear some score predictions before we end the show, but we can do that at the end.
No, let's do that now before we get into the heavy stuff. I'll go ahead and tell you what my prediction was. I think Georgia's offense, I kind of agree with the guy you were talking about with the podcast. Like, I think Georgia's offense is gonna maybe not have enough in the tank, and I think Georgia's defense is gonna play out of its damn mind. And so I really think this is like 28-24 Alabama. And that 28 is going to be a monumental accomplishment, but it just won't be quite enough.
Yeah. All right. So I was struggling a lot with this game up until about 24 hours ago, of just kind of like, it's the Alabama factor, right? So like, naturally, I don't expect us to ever win against Alabama. But honestly, like, after watching all of this film over the last 24 hours and seeing what Alabama does on offense and what Georgia does on offense and what Alabama does on defense, like, I know this is going to sound crazy. I know it's probably going to be wrong. But trying to be totally like unbiased, not bet with my heart, my prediction is Georgia 35, Alabama 24. I don't think it's going to be close. I mean, I think it'll be close, but I think that like Georgia will, you know, will do that thing in the fourth quarter where they're just kind of like anaconda wrap themselves around Alabama. And
I think to that point, I think if we can get in the fourth quarter, I love our chances. I really do, because that means that Stetson, you know, has settled down, and we're not making mistakes. We're not snapping balls over our quarterback's head. I mean, and if we can get to the fourth quarter, I like our chances. You know, we've seen, you know, Mac Jones not come through in a big game in the Iron Bowl last year. I mean, he's got more playing time, but Stetson Bennett has been around. You know, he's not been around under the lights on television, but he's been playing football for a long time. So he's not just the guy that came off the, you know, walk on that came off. I like our chances in the fourth quarter. Now, how do we get there? Certainly, I would rather have. I guess the question is maybe this is a good question. Would you rather have Georgia's defense or Alabama's offense?
I'd rather have defense personally
for this game or for the season.
Just for the season.
Oh, the defense. Because I feel like think about defense is like it's not going to probably matter in your other 9 games, right? Like Georgia's probably going to win 9 to 10 games on the strength of its defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Bama is going to, probably win 9 or 10 games on the strength of his offense. But I just feel like the variance is so much lower, especially like I don't see this defense losing to South Carolina. I just don't. I mean, they're just better than they were last year. And like, you're not going to get snake bit with this defense. And I say that, and someone's going to play this clip at me in like a month and a half when we lose by 30 to Vanderbilt or whatever. But I just think your floor is so high when you can roll a defense out like this.
Yeah.
I worry a little bit. We've given up a big pass play twice to Tennessee and once to Arkansas. And as good as our defense have been, we cannot have those lapses. I mean, even if we give up big chunk plays, we got to keep them out of the end zone, because even if they drive down the field, I love our defense inside the 25. Now it's just, when they're getting over the top and they're, going in the end zone, of course, or even inside the 5 or 10. But when I like putting pressure on Mac Jones inside the red zone where windows get smaller and, there's less room to move. And I really like Georgia's chances again, get in the fourth quarter, you're going to get plays run on you that are going to be for big yards, but just let's try to eliminate the mental mistakes and keep them out of the end zone on those plays. I mean, that sounds simple, but a lot's got to happen on offense and we've got to play great defense, but I don't know. Would you my prediction?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be. I think it's on the flip side of what you said. I think it's going to be 35-24 Alabama.
Fair enough.
All right,
yeah.
well,
the one thing that I just to add into this conversation, that I was listening to the Rivals podcast with Donnan last night while I was looking at some of this film, and there was a good point that was brought up by somebody on there. I don't remember who, but I feel bad. I can't attribute them properly, but the only time Mac Jones has faced a defensive line that's anything close to as serious as what Georgia's going to roll out was in the Iron Bowl last year. And, it played games with him. Marlon Brown and Davidson, Derek Brown and Marlon Davidson, they tore him up and got him off his spot, and he threw 2 pick sixes in that game. And they still put up 45 points. So, you guys could be totally right about that, but it'll be interesting to see. I think Georgia's got
you get over the top.
A bit of a shot to win this game as they've had at any point in the last 12 years going into a Alabama game.
Absolutely. So I don't even really think we need to discuss this because I think this is just a caveat on this whole episode. We think at this point this game's being played. Nick Saban has been recently reported positive for COVID. It looks like he's asymptomatic, and thank goodness for that. I secretly sort of love that crotchety old bastard, and I'm happy that he's going to come out of this. I love hating him so much. I need him to be around until he wants to retire. So everything we just said is with a grain of salt because, unfortunately, the reality is that, UGA or Alabama could report 25 positives tomorrow and this game gets delayed. And so we just don't know. I mean, I think if you were betting, you'd probably say it does get played, but I would have said 24 hours ago that LSU Florida would get played this weekend. And so, what do I know? But we thought it would be best to come on and break down film anyway, just because, hey, if we can do it, you might as well do it. Enjoy what you do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for following, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's you guys are doing fun stuff, and I love listening to you guys and being a part of it.
Well, we like having you here, Josh, and we like all of our listeners, and we like, it's been a great experience for, I think, all 3 of us. Josh, before I get us out of here with this outro, you want to talk about our hats or your hats?
Well, the FTMF hat, if you don't know what it is, we haven't cursed on this podcast or this video, whatever we got going on. So I'm going to keep the E off of it. But Look it up, and if you don't, you probably know what it is. But anyway, these hats have been kind of popular, and people ask about them. So I'm having some made. So if you want one, they're going to cost about $25, and I'm making maybe $1, if that, off of them. And they're made by, being embroidered right here in my hometown in Griffin. So it's, supporting small businesses, and we can do that this time of year. During these times, and it's helpful. You like the hat, wear it, get it ready, order yours now for the Florida game. And just follow me on Twitter. I'm gonna I don't know how I'll do it. I'm a boomer, so I might put it on eBay. I don't know. Somebody help me if anybody's got any ideas how to organize the sales of these. But I'm getting some made. It'd be nice to know how popular or how many you want, because I've got 25 ordered, and I will certainly order more. But I just got to get a feel for them. So if you want one, hit me up. Graham, you got one on the way. Nathan, you're the proud owner of the very first series of these. So FTMF, and yeah, it's a nice flex fit hat. Yeah, they're good. They're good hats.
I wear an 8 1/4 fitted hat, and they still fit my head.
There you go.
Nathan, before you take us out, I do want to just throw out one more point on this game, which is remember special teams.
We didn't even do any special teams.
And Carmada or Hot Pot or hell, a Macintosh kick return. He's getting close to breaking one, but that could swing this game very well.
And UGA does have one of the bigger advantages in this game is UGA special teams versus Bama special teams. UGA is, I think, 3rd right now per S&P Plus, and Bama's in the 20s. So
that's pretty close. They're at this stage of the game. I heard Connolly talk about it at this stage. It might be less than a fraction of a point until the end of the year. It's only worth 2 or 3 points on a game, but we'll take it.
Money on a Bama kicker lining up for a field goal will be my guess.
This is true. By the way, Kirby is calling him Pod. It's officially Pod is stuck.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Battle Hymnal. If you like what you heard here today, you can check this out on the audio format at the Chapel Bell Curve podcast feed. We are on iTunes. We are on Spotify. We are on anywhere you can get podcasts. We're probably there. If you really loved what you heard here today, you can check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/Discord. Or what am I saying? Patreon.com/Chapel Bell Curve. That will give you access to our Discord. And we think we have a pretty good. We already have one hat order on your Discord, by the way. We think we have a pretty good experience. We have pretty good community going over there. We do live watch parties. You get extra stats from Josh. You get all the film we have. We think you'll enjoy it. If you would like to get in touch with us, I'm at Nathan J. Lawrence and at Chapel Bell Curve. Graham is at Dog Out West and at the Battle Hymnal, and Josh is at Dog_stats. And we will not catch you in Tuscaloosa this weekend, because don't go to Tuscaloosa even when it's not during a pandemic. Mm-hmm. And until then, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.